Most of us made a beautiful January table topper, so now it's time to make a Cuties table topper for February. Hey everyone, Cristin here, and we are going to start on our February Cuties table topper. So we all have our January one that we've been enjoying all month, and now it's time to do the February one. So our booklet, we are going to look at page 22. So we can see it here on my tag, page 22. We're going to start with the deck of cards, and we're going to do this in sections just like we did for January. So the first one is going to be the deck of cards, the center, and then we'll work our way out. So for the deck of cards, let's go ahead and talk about the items that we need for this one. So for our main fabric, by the way, so this one, I'm gonna group two of them in one hooping, just like we did last month. I'll do two in one hooping and then do the other two in another hooping. And we're gonna have our quilting on top of the design. And I'm gonna show you very easily in embroidery software how to merge them, join them, and also how to move the quilting design so that it's at the end of the project. So first, let's go over what we need for our project. So we have this tan colored with lines all over it fabric. This is our main fabric. Make sure to back this with fusible stabilizer so that you don't get puckering. We're going to have 4 of these, and we're going to start with them at 7.5 by 7.5. 4 pieces, all backed with fusible stabilizer of this tan with lines all over it at 7.5 by 7.5 for our main fabric. All right, and then after that, we are going to work on those cute deck of cards. So there are 4 different pieces, and I've put mine in the order that we're going to use them. The first one is a directional fabric. So if you look in the booklet, and I'll have it on the tutorial as well, it has the stripes going vertically. Right? Vertically, yeah. Horizontal this way, vertically this way. So this is the way that we're going to lay the fabric down on our project. So this is the very first one. This is called card 1. And all of these, we want 4 pieces at 3.5 by 3.5. 4 pieces of each of them. So this is just the first one, 4 pieces at 3.5 by 3.5, and I did back mine with fusible stabilizer. That's completely optional. I like to do it this way because it's more crisp, but completely optional for these. A lot of people don't like to do them on these. It does make it a little bit harder to fold it down, but I have a nice little small iron in the hoop that I can use, and that works really well for me. There's also that Clover folding pen. I will add a link underneath the video for the Clover folding pen. That works really well too. So anyway, 4 pieces of the first one of card 1, 3.5 by 3.5, 4 pieces. That's the first one. The second one is the pinkish coral color with flowers on it. And again, 4 pieces, and again at 3.5 by 3.5. And I did back mine with fusible stabilizer, again, totally optional. This is for card 2, 4 pieces at 3.5 by 3.5. And then for card 3, it is this red floral, 4 pieces, 3.5 by 3.5. This is for card 3. All right, and then the last one is a silky solid, coral colored silky solid, and again 4 pieces at 3.5 by 3.5. And all of these are for the deck of cards that we will make. And I always find with piecing projects that if you put them in the order that you're going to use them, that makes it the easiest. So actually I'm going to change this, and I'm going to do 2 of each one since I'm having 2 in each hooping. So make sure that they're in order of how you're going to use them, card 1, 2, 3, and 4, and that will make it a little bit easier. All right, and then we are going to quilt this, and like I mentioned, we're going to move the quilting toward the end of the project, or at the very end of the project of this deck of cards project. So we're going to use Center Heart. That is our quilting design, and it's Center Heart. It doesn't have a size listed, but it's probably 5 by 5 would be my guess, because our final cut size is 5.5 by 5.5. So we want a piece of batting. We want 4 pieces of batting. That's 6 by 6. 4 pieces, 6 by 6. I have a little string there. All right, so one for each of the deck of cards projects, 4 pieces, 6 by 6 of your batting. And like I said, we're going to use center heart as our quilting design. All right, and then I did mention we're going to move the design, the quilting part of the design to the end. So I'm going to bring you over to the computer and show you how to do that. So let's go ahead and get started. So one quick thing, just a reminder, our sponsor is My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop for this project, for all of the Cuties table toppers. Make sure to order your fabric kit for each month's project, or you can do the entire 6-month bundle. Either way, the coupon codes are underneath this video, and under the video is also the listing of the thread colors that I've chosen for February that I will be using, and you can use whatever works for you. You can also use your own stash of fabrics. It just obviously makes it pretty simple if you get it from our sponsor and you're supporting them sponsoring our project. So that's always a good thing. But anyway, so My Girlfriend's Quilt Shop, check underneath the video for all the information. Hey everyone, so I'm at my computer now and I am going to show you in embroidery software how you can merge 2-in-1 hooping if you choose for the deck of cards. We need 4 of them total, so I'm going to go ahead and merge them together. You could try, let's see, if the final cut size is 5.5 by 5.5, you could try to get them in an extra large hoop if you want. To me, it's a little bit too much, so I'm going to do 2-in-1 hooping and then 2 again, whatever works for you. So I'm going to open up Embellishment Essentials. That's the embroidery software that I use. And I am on, right down here at the bottom, you can see what hoop size that you're on. I'm on my 7 by 12 hoop, which actually I think is what I'm going to try and use. If you're not on the hoop that you want, you would go up here to this preferences folder, click on that and choose the hoop that you want and say okay. All right, and then once you have that, you can click on this compass up here in the right hand corner, this button right here. And if you click on H, it will zoom into the entire hoop so that you can see all of it. Mine's already there, so it won't look any different for you, but I'm just showing you where it is if you change your hoop size. Okay, so we're going to start by bringing in the quilting design. The quilting design that we're using is called Center Heart. So I'm going to go to this Merge Stitch File button. And I think we're going to have a lot of changes to do because there's a lot of piecing on this. So let's go ahead and Cuties Table Topper. There's my bundle right there. All right, so we're looking for Center Heart. I believe it was under February. There we go. So centers and triangles February. So if we click on that, all of the designs will populate. There is a 5 by 7 one for those of you with a smaller hoop. It's right there. I'm going to scroll down to this one that is a 6 by 10. It's actually probably 6 by 6 or even smaller. But it's 5 and it's probably, anyway, let's just see. We'll click on it and we'll find out. So right here, it says 6 by 10 Center Heart. I double click on that and it goes to the center. I'm going to go ahead and keep this in the center. And now we can see down here at on the bottom right hand corner, it says it's 5.5 by 5.5. So that means the quilting design is actually 5 by 5, but with that 1/4 inch seam allowance on each side, it comes out as 5.5 by 5.5 for that step 3 and step 4, the placement and tack down of the main fabric. All right, so we're going to start by opening this plus sign, and it shows us the 5 steps of the quilting design. And as we have talked about before, if you have default 1 blue twice, see it's on step 1-1 and on step 1-3, those will merge together, and then it'll take away the whole purpose of having those placement and tack down lines. So the orange ones right here, 1-2 and 1-4, those are the tack down. So tack down of the batting and tack down or basting stitch of the main fabric. So those would join, and we don't want those to join. So it's very easy to change the colors so that they will not join together. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm clicking on this first one, 1-1, and then I click on the color, and the colors come up. So it doesn't matter what color you use. I'm going to go ahead and just click on the very first one, dark aqua, and the colors on your end may come out different. It just depends on what you have as your preferred thread. As you can see here, I have Filtech Glide, as it comes up as Filtech Glide for me because I put it as my preferred thread color. So I have that. So my first one that comes up is dark aqua. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that and say okay. And again, it doesn't matter what color. You just want to make sure that it is different than the 1-1 and 1-3 are different so that they don't join. So we'll keep going. So that was the first one. So the 1-2, default to orange. I'm going to go ahead and click on this color. And the first one that comes up for me is Blaze. And then I'll say okay. All right, then 1-3. Click on the color and you can see that here's the dark aqua that we already used. You can see it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the second color down, which is Marine, and say okay. And then same thing with 1-4, default to orange. Click on that step and then click on the color. And we already used Blaze. You can see it right here. So I'm going to go ahead and use the second one down, which is Oriole, and say okay. And then 1-5 is our quilting design. I'm going to go ahead and change that color as well, just in case there is a turquoise later in the deck of cards design. So I'm going to click on the color. First one that comes up for me is Sprout, and I'm going to say okay. All right, so that quilting design is all done. I left it in the middle so that we can bring in the deck of cards design, the embroidery part of the design or the piecing part of the design, and we can have it merge and center. So I'm going to go ahead and go here to this merge stitch file. And now instead of the quilting design, I'm going to go ahead and close up the quilting designs so that I can see. And here's my embroidery files right here. So I've only saved the PEZ files because that's what I use for my machines. But you'll see all the different formats and you would just click on the format that you use for your machine. So click on that and then I'm going to scroll down here and here is the deck of cards right here, 5x7 deck of cards. And I'm going to go ahead and double click on that and it will go directly to the center. Now if I click on this, you can see from the black squares that it is perfectly centered. That's why I left the design in the center that way. That made it easy to just not have to move it around and get it centered just right. Now look at all these default blues and oranges and red, dark reds. So lots and lots of default blues and oranges here. So we're going to go ahead and change all of those so that they don't join together. We want each of these to be stops so that we can lay down our fabric. And we don't want them to join. So I'm going to very quickly just run through the design and change the colors. So we have to keep in mind we already used dark aqua and marine and we don't want those to join with our quilting. So we're going to move on to the third one, which is Hawaiian blue. All right. For me, it's Hawaiian blue. Again, for you, it could be completely different. So click on the color and say okay. And then same thing for orange, this 2-2 default to orange. Click on the color and we already used Blaze and Oriole. We can see them up above, but I remember if you wanted to look above, you could just scroll up here. Well, not while this window's open. Sorry, I'll show you in a minute. All right, so that we already used Blaze and Oriole, so I'm going to click on the next one, which for me is Coral, and say okay. All right, so if you don't remember the colors you use, you can always use this to scroll. You can also use the mouse scroll button. Either way, you can see the colors that you used in case you've forgotten. All right. So now back to the blue and the oranges. So I'm going to click on this number 2-3 right here. Click on the color. And then we've already used, the last one was Hawaiian blue right there. So the next one would, for me, would be Mercury. Say okay. And then default to orange, click on the color. We've already used Coral was our last one. So we're not, the next one for me is Lava. Say okay. All right. And I want to point out, I'll show you when we get to the color sort. It's very important that you have your settings the same as mine for this to work the same way it will on mine. So I will remember to point that out or do a screenshot so that you can see the settings that I have. All right, so now we are on 2-4 we just finished, so we're going to move to 2-5. Now this is the color, the satin stitching or decorative stitching around it. And there are more dark reds. So Let's see, do we change the colors? We don't. So we could have that all join after we're done. I have to think about that. So it looks like the color is going to be the same on each of these. So we could have all of those join and it will do them together. I think I'll leave this for now. I have to think about this one and make sure we would want them. That's the order they're in. So yeah, I think maybe not. So it is going to be all the same color, but it looks like we do all of the placement for one, and then it does the decorative outline, and then all of the placement and a decorative outline. So if we join it right now, it would do it on, so like for instance, it would do this one and then it would start on this one, and yet we haven't done the placements yet. So we actually need to change these colors. Or move them to the end. I'm going to go ahead and change the color. It will actually be the same thread color that we will use, but we just don't want it to join. Does that make sense? Because if we have this satin stitch here and then it starts in on the next one and we haven't placed these fabrics down, then we've made a problem. So I'm going to go ahead and just change the color. That will be very easy. So the first one that comes up for me is Ruby. I'm going to say okay. All right, and then here we're back to the default blues and oranges. Our last one looks like was Mercury. All right, so I'm going to click on the color and we want to go past Mercury, which is tropical for me. All right, and then 2-7, click on 2-7, then click on the color. The last one that we used was Lava, so we're going to go past Lava and we're going to go to Strawberry Blonde. And whenever I click on Strawberry Blonde, I always think about my son because he has a strawberry blonde beard. When he grows a beard, it's strawberry blonde. Pretty fun. All right, and then this 2-8 dark red, I'm going to use a different one than Ruby just to make sure that it does not join. All right, so I'm going to click on the color. We already used Ruby, and now we're going to use Purple Rose and say okay. And then another default blue, click on that. The last one that we used was Tropical. So if I click on the color and I'm going to scroll down to the next one, which is Robin Egg, and say okay. And then default to orange, this is 210. The last one that we used was Strawberry Blonde. So I'm going to click on the color and go past Strawberry Blonde to Autumn and say okay. And then here's that dark red, and I'm going to click on the color, and we already used Purple Rose, so the next one is Mauve, and say okay. All right, now this is probably the overall. Oh, it's the last. All right, so it's kind of funny that this was that first one. If I scroll up here, I can see that I did the placement stitch and the tack down stitch of this, and yet it doesn't jump into the decorative stitch like it does on the others. It's down here at the bottom. So anyway, I'm going to go ahead and click on the color and change it. The first one that comes up is Tomato. All right, because that's a default 4, and say okay. All right, so these are all changed. This is all ready for us. So I am going to go ahead and I am going to group these. So to do that, I can either click and drag to make sure that I'm getting both the first one, which is the quilting, and the second one, which is the embroidery applique design. I can do it that way to make sure I've got both designs. Or the other way I can do it is I can close these little minus signs and I can drag from the bottom here up. Either way, you just want to make sure that you're getting the quilting design and the applique design together, and then we go to Edit Group. All right, and that just makes it so that we can move this design without having to worry about it like grabbing just the quilting design or just the applique design. These are grouped together. All right, so that one is done and it's great. I'm going to go ahead now and hit Control C. I have both the quilting design and the applique design together. So I'm going to hit Control C to copy and then Control V. I'm doing this on my keyboard, and you can see it made another one. It goes right on top of the first one, so you can't see it at all, but you can see here 1, 2, 3, 4 now instead of 2 designs. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the stitching and bring it all the way down. You can also use your arrow buttons on your keyboard if you prefer, whatever works for you. But this is grouped as well, so that's perfect, so we don't have to worry about it. Now notice there's not a ton of room in between. So if you feel like this is going to be too close, you could use a larger hoop. A 9x14 hoop would work just fine. Or if you feel comfortable with this, I'm using a 7x12 currently. A 9x14 would work as well. Either one, whatever you feel comfortable with. There's not a whole lot of room, which is really fine, except that, remember, this is a piecing project, so there will be those long parts that hang over. So you will have to watch it a little bit, or again, use a 9x14. That would work perfectly fine. If you are going to use a larger hoop like a 9x14, you want to do it now before you group, because once you group it, then it's all, or not just the grouping, but the color sorting. Because once you do the color sort, it's all one design, and then you won't be able to move the things around, the 2 or 4 designs around. So you want to do that now if you decide to use a larger hoop. All right, so we have 4 designs. I'm just closing up the window so I can see I've got all 4 designs here. Now, one thing that I really like to do, and I think it makes it a lot easier when you are doing a color sort, is I want to make sure that my quilting designs are together and my applique designs are together. So I'm going to go ahead and either one, you could click this one and move up, or you could click this one and move down, either way. So I'm going to go ahead and right click on it and say move later. But this little part right after here, move later, and you can see it just moved it down. So now I have the first quilting together, the second quilting, and then I have the first applique design and the second applique design. And that just makes it a lot easier. Then you're doing your batting all at once, you're doing the appliques together. So that makes it a lot easier. So we have one thing that we want to do, as I mentioned earlier in the video. It's very important that we move our the last part. So if I open up these 5 steps here, this last part, this quilting design here, we want that on top of the design. So right now it would not be on top, because you can see that we've got the applique pieces here, so they're not even there yet. We want this quilting design to be on top. There's a really easy way to do that, and so I'm going to show you. So right now we're going to go ahead and just leave this as is. We've got our 4 designs, our two quilting designs and our 2 applique designs, and we have them centered in the hoop in the way that we want them. And so we're going to go ahead and do a color sort. So right now we have four steps, or 4 designs. There's 34 steps. You can see down here on the right hand bottom corner that there are 34 steps total. So if we go to Utility Color Sort right there, and it reduced it by 17 color changes. So click New View. So right now we have Untitled 1. It's going to open another tab. So I'm going to go to New View, and we've got our second tab now. And see, if I click on this first tab, see there's the 4 different designs. On the second tab, they're all grouped together into one design. So if I open this up, I can check everything and make sure it did it the right way. And we've got the first one is the batting. This is the placement for the batting. The second one is the tack down of the batting. The third one is the placement of the main fabric. The fourth one is the tack down or the basting stitch of the main fabric. And this last one of the quilting design, which now is all grouped together, but this last one, number 5, is our quilting design. You can see that's the one we're going to want to move, but I'm going to go ahead and keep looking to make sure that these are all correct first. All right, so then we have the placement of our first applique piece and our tack down of our applique, and then we have that placement of the second fabric and the tack down of the second fabric, and then we have that first satin stitch or decorative stitch, and then the third placement of the applique and the tack down of that applique and the stitching for that. And then this last one, I believe this is the last one, the fourth one, placement of the applique and the tack down of the applique, and then that satin stitch or decorative stitch around that one, and then the decorative stitch of that first one that we did. So that all worked out exactly perfectly, except don't forget, we want to move this quilting design. So it's 1-5 right here. Oh, and I forgot to show you on that color sort. I'll show you in just a second. Sorry about that. All right, so 1-5, this one, we want this at the very end of all of that. So if we go ahead and click on that and say move last, it's easy to do now that it's all grouped as one design. So just before I do that, let me just show you again. See, everything is all together in one. If we had tried to do it before they were all color sorted, then it's really hard to move it because it will just go to the end of that part of the design. So since they're all together in one design now, it's super easy. So again, 1-5 right here, I'm going to right click on it and say move last. And then look at it's down there at the very bottom. Perfect. That was so easy. So after we run through those first 4 steps of the quilting, and we'll jump right into the applique, and at the end of all of that, then we will do our quilting. So that's perfect. So we've already done our color sort, everything is all done, but I forgot to show you that one bit. So I'm going to go ahead and go back. So right now we have 17 color steps. That's so much easier than 34, right? That'll take so much less time. So before we do a file save, I just want to show you real quick. If we do that utility color sort, I want to make sure and just point this out real quick. It's not going to change anything for us because we already did it. But this is the part I want to point out. This is your preferences or your settings on your color sorting. Notice I do not have RHS pre-sort clicked on. I don't have the force applique position or material clicked. And I have the tolerance at 0. So you need, if you want to do this that I'm doing with changing the colors and color sorting them and grouping them and all of that, you want these same settings. I had someone a couple projects back say that they went through my entire tutorial and did everything I did, and then it did not come out the same way. It was all wonky, and we figured out it was because her settings on here were completely different than what I have. So just make sure you have these same settings. Again, this is not checked, not checked, not checked, and then tolerance is at 0, and then it will work out exactly right for you. All right, so that is what I wanted to mention about that. Now we've already done all of our grouping and color sorting, so we're going to go to File, Save Stitch File As right here. Save Stitch File As. There's also a working file and a stitch and working. I don't bother with this unless I'm using fonts. If I have added wording or personalization in there and I'm using a BX font, then you want to save a working file so that you can easily make changes to your fonts and your wording. But since we're not doing that, a stitch file is the one that will make a PEZ file for my machine or whatever file that you need for your machine. So I'm going to go to Save Stitch File As, and then I'm going to put it in my folder that has my Cuties. So right now it's popping up as my red, white, and bloom because that's what I worked on last. So I'm going to go to desktop, and then here is my tabletoppers right there. So if I click on that, I can go to the embroidery files, and all I'm doing is it's asking me, well, where do you want to save this? So I'm just telling it I want to save it in my Cuties folder so that I can find it easily. You could save it to your desktop, whatever works for you. All right, so I am going to say deck of cards times 2. There's 2 of them. You could say double, whatever works for you, that you'll remember that this is your deck of cards and you've got that 2 of them on this file. Or if you have 4 or whatever you're doing, I'm not brave enough to do 4 in 1. Hooping on piecing projects, you need a little bit more room. So I'm going to go ahead and just stay with 2, and I'll do 2 hooping. So I'm going to say save. All right, and it's all set. I don't have my machine on. If my machine was on, I could go to I think it's Utility, send to Solaris. If you have one of the Wi-Fi ready machines, I don't know if it's only Brother and Baby Lock that Embrilliance does this, but it's really convenient. If you don't have that, then you would just put your USB stick into your computer and save it to your USB drive and bring it over to your embroidery machine. So we're all set. We've got these duplicated and ready to go. And just a quick reminder, if you are in the market for embroidery software, please use my link. It is embrilliance.com/jam affiliate/Cristin creates. I can spell my name, honest I can. All right, and then you just go to that link and Embrilliance comes up. There we go. There's Embrilliance. And Essentials is the one I'm using. Embrilliance Essentials. It's right here on this left bar. It's also in this store at the top. Either one, it goes to the same place. Click on that, and there is Embrilliance Essentials right there. And it's on sale right now for a few more days at $139. So a $15 savings or $16 savings. And I use it on a lot of our project. I use this for a lot of our project, and so I will show you step by step everything that I'm doing, and it makes it really easy. And if you use my link, it gives a little kickback to me and helps support my family, so I'm appreciative. So how are you doing with your goal? Oh my goodness. So I hosted family over and friends, a couple friends, for football today. Our San Francisco team won. Pretty excited about that. I'm not really a football gal, but why not, right? So anyway, before they all came over, I had to make sure to get my workout in, and I did a ride in France, was it? I think it was in France. And then another one in Vietnam. And it's funny because I go on these virtual rides and I get to see and hear all the history of these places that I go to. And they're very, very interesting. And it always makes me like, oh, I really want to go. And yet the Vietnam one, I was like, no, I don't want to go there. You should have seen it. It was so funny. The trainer is leading us through these really, really busy roads. And all the cars are like cutting in front of them. I'm like backing off on my virtual bike going, oh my gosh, there's so many cars. So that's one place I don't have any big desire to go there. At least not to go for a bike ride. So anyway, I did get my workout in. I did the 2 short bike rides and I did a strength training exercise program as well. Kicked my bum, so I'm sure I'll be sore tomorrow. I'm already a little bit tight. I can feel it all. So I hope that you're doing your goal. I really want to hear updates on how you're doing with your goal. Accountability, right? So share in the comments and tell me how you're doing with your goal. And my shirt today is Brave and Strong. I think this is a Hoop Mama design. I'll have to look it up and add all the information underneath the video. But it's a great shirt with the breast cancer ribbon on it. And a little tiny applique, which I put a little breast cancer ribbon fabric in there. So that was fun. I think it was Dwani Howard that sent me a bunch of cancer fabrics, breast cancer ribbon fabric, so I put that on the inside. And so fun design, and I'll add all the information under the video on where I found the design. The shirt, Fred Meyer, I'm pretty sure I got it from Fred Meyer. Nice. It's one of those Under Armour shirts, yeah, so nicely made and thankfully on sale because they're not cheap.